Today I'm going to be working on my Queen's Tears Bromeliad. Isn't it beautiful? Now I set this one out so you could see it. Let me pick the camera up and scan around a little bit. Isn't that nice? It's just a large cluster in a decorator pot. We've moved all of our plants up under trees for the winter here in Zone 9B. It's spring now, I'm moving them out. Some of them need a little work, so come join me. Hey, it's Elise, and I'm very glad you stopped by the garden. This is a bromeliad. It could be a terrestrial bromeliad, an epiphytic bromeliad, or even a soxycosis bromeliad, which means it can grow on rocks, it can grow in the air, or it can grow in the ground. Isn't it gorgeous? It's also called friendship plant because it does put out lots of pups and you can share it with your friends. The name Queen's Tears come from this beautiful panicle. Now these aren't quite open yet, but I wanted to get some of these separated before we got too far into spring. So we get this nice hot pink bract coming up from the rosette of the bromeliad. And then it puts out these panicles, and these panicles are going to open up in a rainbow of colors. And from each panicle, you're going to get a drip of nectar. And that's where the Queen's Tears name comes from. Obviously, pollinators love it. Fantastic ornamental. It is a bromeliad, and like most bromeliads, it is monocarpic, which means that the mother plant is going to make one blossom, one bloom, and eventually she will die back, but she puts out pups for you. So I've got a big cluster over here I'm going to take apart and repot. This one I will probably just leave and move it out into more of a showcase position since it is gorgeous. All right, so here is my cluster that I want to work on. And it does have one nice sized bloom on it. You don't need soil. The only reason you want enough soil is if you're putting them in a pot, the soil, rocks, moss, whatever you want to use can hold the bromeliad upright for you, so it's not falling over. One year I made a bromeliad tree and I just tied the bromeliads in the tree trunks. It was neat. If you have a rock garden, you can just tuck them into the rock garden. So this is a very easy bromeliad to work with. Now there's no soil in this. This is just a big cluster that I put in this great big 7-gallon container and put up underneath a tree to overwinter. So now I want to pull them out and see. Well, it does have just a little bit, but that's probably what just drifted in. And see what we've got. They do grow on rhizomes. So here we have a nice young one. Isn't that pretty? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a couple of piles. The nice young ones that I know haven't bloomed yet, I'll put in one pile. The pile, I'll have another pile where they may have bloomed. You can't always tell. And that's my pile for potential blooms. So I can plant this just like this, clean it up a little bit. I do suggest you wear gloves. They are lightly serrated. It's not a bad serration, but if you're going to work on a big cluster like this, then yes, you might want to wear gloves. Move the camera down. There we go. All right. Grows on rhizomes, will have roots. Again, tuck it into a tree, tuck it into a rock garden, put it in a container. It grows outside up to zone 8. After that, the plant does very, very well as a house plant. It has this kind of smoky greenish blue cast to it, and some of them will be mottled as they get older. Now I don't see a mottled one here, but I'll post a picture on the screen of some of mine that are modeled. If they look old, you can just go ahead and take them off. And see this nice young one, the pup it put out? So this was the original mother. It put out a pup, and that one put out a pup. So I doubt very seriously that this one will bloom, but what I'm going to do with it, I will throw in a pile. Then I'm going to go out back, and I have some trees, and I'm just going to stand it up underneath the tree. If it puts out more pups, fantastic. But it's not in a location that can be easily seen, but I'm not throwing them away. They make fantastic habitats for little creatures. Also, they have a rosette like most bromeliads, but these are a deep funnel rosette. So they were going to hold lots of water, lots of debris. The pollinators like the water, all the other little insects like the water, and they like that debris. So this is going into my put underneath a tree for the insect pile. And if I get pups from it, fantastic. All right, so this one looks really good. Looks nice and healthy, and you can really see that funnel rosette. When you water these, water them from the top so you do get water in that rosette. Now I can take this one apart just by snapping it and separate it and make two plants. For right now, I'm just going to put it over in my basket of my really nice ones that I want to keep. All right, here's another. Now this one's, for all intents and purposes, you would probably throw that away. Put it in your compost pile, earth compost it, or like I'm going to do, put it under a tree. I never know, I might get another little pup from the rhizome, but again, it helps the insects. But this one I am going to separate off. And look at that nice, long bromeliad. Fantastic. Queen's Tears. All right. Here's another one with a nice young pup on it. These are disease and pest resistant. Now ours might have a few little bug bites on it because they have overwintered outside. Excuse me. They've overwintered outside. So, again, I can break this off or I can leave it. For right now, I'm going to leave it. This one looks really sad, so that's going in my under a tree pile. Here's a nice young one, and the mother plant has died all the way back. Sometimes the mother plant dies back so slow that you can't even tell. All right, so this was the mother plant, and this is an older pup. I'm going to go ahead and just pop that apart, put the better looking one in my container, and put the older looking one to go under the tree. And that's it. There's the one with the bract. So we can get a little closer look at how that bract is formed. It comes up from the middle, encased in one of the leaves, and it puts out this hot pink bract, and it goes all the way up, opens up, drops this beautiful rainbow panicle on it. This will open up more and be little tiny flowers, and they'll drop a drop of nectar. Again, that's where the name came from. So I'm just going to clean that up a little bit and put it in my good pot. And that's it. I'm going to go through this whole stack. There's another young one. There's a nice little young one. That's why it's called Friendship Prime. And you know, bromeliads will reproduce really readily for you if they're happy at all. Another little one. Nice funnel, holding debris, holding water. This one, of course, is dead. If you don't have a, oh, look at this little bitty one. If you don't have a tree or somewhere in your landscape that you can go ahead and put the potential plants in, put them in a pot and just sit them in the shade somewhere. Now this is a big cluster. There's the old one, there's the new one. Just break it apart. I was kind of looking for a modeled one, which I don't see, but like I said, I'm sure I have photos in my file that I can share with you. And they can get nice and big and fat. Put a young one out, and since these were so crowded and underneath a big oak tree, they didn't spread out quite as much. Now here's a little of the modeling coming. Just a little modeling. So I'm just going to save that one. This one, most of it's gone, but I will save the young pup. So let's plant one. Now, here you've got your choices. If you want to put it in a container with soil, you certainly can. If you just want to sit all these in a container, you don't have to put anything in. And if you've got enough to hold it up, like this one is not planted with any soil or any moss, rocks, or anything. There's just enough plants in that container that it's holding everything upright for me. Neat. So easy. All right, I'm going to take a couple of these young ones. And I just have some little pots with a little soil. You only need enough soil to hold the plant upright. If you're putting them in the soil, make sure that I'm going to trim that rhizome off just a little bit more. When you put it in the soil, make sure that your existing rhizomes and roots are covered. And that's basically all you have to do. That should straighten up. I can go ahead and I can put a little more soil in there. Hold it up a little straighter. Nice. Now, if you want to come back and put a little moss, a little mulch in here, some decorator rocks, you can. And these young ones do very, very well in little dish gardens. Just remember, they are going to grow up. But that's all there is to planting them. And if some of them look cruddy, even though I don't think they have bloomed out, I'm just going to go ahead and separate them and put them in my pile. So if I have quite a few, I don't even have to put soil in there. I can just take a cluster and put the cluster in enough. Now these are pretty big for this little bitty pot, but you get the idea. The pot itself will serve as the holder. You don't have to put anything in here. Nice. That's how easy this plant is. And if you're growing it on the inside, it's the same thing. Ever so often, do take them apart, look at them, clean them up. Take the old ones off. Again, if you've got room, recycle those older pieces because you might get more pups. Really nice. Now, that only took just a few minutes. All of this debris, now this can go into my compost pile, earth compost, throw it up under trees for chop and drop. Fantastic habitat for your insects. Nice. Friendship plant because it does make lots of pups. Very hardy, easy to grow, easy to maintain. Actually, they're one of these kind of put me in a pot and forget me bromeliads. And they only bloom once a year. Once in a great while you'll get a second growth of blooms. Now this one has been blooming for a couple of weeks now. And hopefully in the next few days, these panicles will go ahead and open up. And if I didn't say it, I'll put a photo of what it looks like when the panicles are open up. But this was the day that I had to do this, so I had to go ahead and go through my container. Let me see if there's any in here that are really mottled. And I will have to go through and clean this one out because it's getting really, really tight. Personally, I don't want mine to get so overcrowded because then your pups don't have enough room to grow. And they end up getting really stringy and skinny. So I want to give them a little more room to grow. So as soon as these finish blooming out, I will take this pot apart and divide it up also. This is fantastic in your shade gardens. Just put it all around in your shade gardens. Plant it in mass or plant a couple here and there for pops of color in the spring. The foliage itself is really pretty and it makes a really nice backdrop. And it can get to sometimes 3 feet tall. So that's really nice. Wonderful again for your wildlife. All right. That's it. I'm going to get a few more pots ready and pot some more of these up. I hope you've enjoyed learning just a little bit about the Queen's Tears Bromeliad. Remember, like all bromeliads, you don't want to ingest it. Wear your gloves because it is lightly serrated, and then just sit back and watch the beauty. Until we speak again, have a fantastic day.